Yo.
The all-purpose theme song.
I love that song. What's
so,
up, Kev? What are we here to talk about today?
We're here to talk about whether jam beans are becoming mainstream.
Again. Right, isn't that the premise? Is where you and Lum were talking about that? How at some point because I argued that I never thought the jam scene was mainstream, and I was kind of. You guys came back at me with, well, with like Spin Doctors and Blues Travelers. Is that the case? I'm a little young for that, but do you think the jam scene was mainstream?
Let's go to 87 when In the Dark came out and Touch of Grey was a top 10 single.
Right.
It became mainstream all of a sudden, and that whole scene blew up. Out of that came your Fishes and your Spin Doctors and all that stuff. They're like, wow, this is a formula we can work with. Trey's talked about going to see the Dead and being like, this is a completely different thing. So, and then we had the second wave, and what was that, 92, 93? Remember Lou Faber had the thing about that was in Spin Magazine.
Yeah.
That's going into the mainstream. Now we have like Goose went on Kimmel. They're getting a lot more mainstream kind of press.
Right, which I guess is like, it's great for Goose, by the way. Like, I'm not trying to shut on their parade, but I feel like that hasn't like Humphreys done that a bunch of times, and like Fish and Tab, and you know what I mean? Like they were on like Letterman and Conan, and like I feel like it's not like this is a big monumental shift. It's just a continuation of the sub mainstream, like not full on mainstream, but not completely
fringe.
Niche. It's fringe. Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's hard for me to even picture what mainstream means anymore. The only things that like strike me as like mainstream are like the MCU, or like I guess you could say like Taylor Swift, because she had like. Did you see that, by the way? It's fucking crazy. The top 10 of the Billboard 100 were all Taylor Swift songs.
Right.
At the same time.
Really, today the Apple thing was all Drake.
Yeah. So maybe that's like mainstream, but I feel like these days shit's so decentralized that maybe you don't have mainstream anymore.
Right. Is there something that everybody buys? Or can you ever have something like a Saturday Night Fever soundtrack again that everybody across?
I mean, yeah, I don't know musically. I like, again, thinking about movies like Top Gun felt very across the board, right? Like whether you're political spectrum or you're urban or rural or age,
still haven't seen
like it kind of floated above all these demographics. But I think, I don't know, man. I feel like we're so decentralized and isolated in these little groups. You know what, though? When you were talking about A Touch of Grey, it did kind of change my mind, because like I see Dead shit everywhere.
Target,
like Kohl's, Walmart, but like on the street, just like, kids fucking like 13, 14, 15 years old, and then
no idea what the Grateful Dead are.
Maybe, right? But it could also just be like another generation, have old head parents.
Right.
But I feel like maybe the Grateful Dead still, right, as like the whole
the Bears, the Dancing Bears have definitely entered mainstream consciousness. They're cute. Kids see that, oh, it's a cute little bear, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you end up selling that stuff at Target and Walmart. And estimate the profit.
Make a buck, man.
Right. Estimate the profit.
I will say, though, I guess like Goose, because I think that was Llama. Llama pitched this, and he probably has his own opinions, but he pitched this idea for microdose. I think what he might have been getting at, if I'm like speculating a little bit, is like with these like more hipster jam bands that are kind of like bridging over and getting like younger fans in, and like getting like some radio time and doing these things. And I guess in that respect, whatever the modern iteration of mainstream is, like Goose is doing that. Because I remember meeting some Goose fans this summer that were not Deadheads or Fish heads. Like they were just brought in through Goose, and then they started to explore other jam bands. And like, it's good for this scene to have young bands with energized fan bases.
So let me ask you this: is Dave Matthews a jam band?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, so I see that trajectory for Goose. You're going to get people who are real into Goose. Goose are going to get big. They're going to sell
But
out shows all over the place.
instead of
But
bros, it's gonna be hipsters with mustaches.
yes,
Right, like Dave was all like bros with soda
yeah,
cups, and like Goose is gonna be hipsters with mustaches.
yes. But I think with a lot more women,
Yeah,
I think that they have some magnetism or something that goes on. They're sexy. What they
yeah,
play is sexy. But I was going to say that Goose are marketing geniuses, though. I think
yeah.
they're pushing into the mainstream. Maybe
And talented musicians. I mean, I
right,
don't want
but
to
they are.
undercut it.
They are. But to go from opening for Pigeons playing ping pong to playing Red Rocks from before quarantine to
Very
after, you did a
quickly.
lot of work during quarantine when people couldn't get out and play.
Yeah.
For that
Yeah, they
8
got their shit
months.
out there in front of people.
And then as soon as they could, they were like, "Well, distance, whatever pods, let's do
Yeah.
that whole thing." And they were the only game in town.
Yeah, and there
Brilliant.
was a lot of like content creation and like fervor amongst the fans too that had a lot of extra time to spread the word, because I feel like you're right. A lot of that came from Goose Camp or Goose Inc. or whatever. But there was also, I think, like almost a grassroots pushing
The El
that you
Goose
see.
Times
Yeah, I
came to
mean,
be.
and Ryan and all his shit,
Yeah.
and like a lot of other people really jumped on early and helped push it. But I don't know.
Mm,
I would argue that the best argument for the jam scene being mainstream is still the Dead, though. Like
right.
on, and I don't think that'll ever get touched.
No,
Like
yeah, that
that's,
one.
I mean, Fish couldn't come close, and no, I don't think any other band is getting close to the cultural
Right.
impact. And
I still think Fish is a little bit underground.
oh,
They
sure,
never had the top 10 single. That's what propelled the Dead from being a consistent concert act to having all the issues with we can't let people camp at shows anymore, and you got 6,000 extra people showing up for a concert, so you have those people milling around while the band's playing.
I when I was putting in PTO this past summer to go see him, my manager, like with the guy I report to, he's like, "Oh, I know Fish. I thought they stopped playing in the '90s." Like they like a lot of people know who they are. It's not like, oh, I've never heard of them. It's just I didn't realize that they were still selling out MSG every year or stuff like
Right.
that. Let me ask you a question actually, because that reminds me. Do you think when they released Sci-Fi Soldier, Get More Down without any Fish thing, that was an attempt, maybe, or in the back of their mind of like, hey, somebody will stumble upon this and it won't be under, the whole like preconceived notion of Fish, and maybe we'll get new people in this way?
Hmm.
Because it's
I,
interesting that they didn't
yeah.
brand it at all with their Fish.
Right. I think that was part of the trick.
Yeah.
The trick was they didn't name it after Fish. The treat was you found it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know how Spotify's algorithm works, but I can see it, showing up being like, I assume that things sound similar. That's how
It showed
Spotify is
up on my
suggesting.
it showed up on my YouTube,
Okay.
and I watch a lot of like Fish related and jam scene related content, and I didn't search for it anywhere. But I think honestly, with like the community, once a fan found it, it spread like, I
Oh,
mean,
that
like
was it. Yeah.
80, 90 people are posting instantly like they found this thing. And
You want to be
you know,
first on the scene.
right, the first report. Yeah, cool. So what
So
else
I
is
guess
going
I
on?
guess there is no mainstream is what we're going to go with. So jam bands can't really do that, but I think that they are getting a wider audience. I think
Right.
that quarantine, people spent so much time on social media, they discovered some of this, or people they knew discovered, oh, you like Fish? I didn't think Fish was playing anymore, kind of thing. They discovered that and maybe dove in. We saw a lot of people on Twitter be like, I stopped seeing them, in 2003, but over quarantine, I got back into them because I had nothing to do.
It does feel like the first time that I can perceive that there's been substantial growth of this quote unquote scene since the '90s,
Right.
right? Like it felt like it was stagnant, not bad, like it was dynamic and like living, but like self-contained and just maybe like a little ancestral, right? Like, oh, you had your Humphrey camp or your Mo camp or whatever, but it was like the same core group since the '90s, and now it's like new people coming in.
Right, exactly. And I was going to say, I went and saw Eggy last night. We're going to talk about that Wednesday.
Wednesday
Um,
night,
make
Wook
sure you
Lift.
like, subscribe, ring the bell. But I want to talk about that because it was packed, and I did not expect it to have that many people there for Eggy.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, or you want to make people wait?
I'm
All
thumbs
right,
up,
cool.
but I got a lot to say, so we'll talk about that
Yo, and
Wednesday.
we're gonna tier New Year's Eve shows on Wednesday night. It's just gonna be us,
Yes.
just the guys. So come hang out with us. All right, let's get out of here. Where's the fucking music? Boom. All right, thanks, Kev. I'll see you next time.